Hello friends, my name is SagarMore and today in this video, we are going to see HTML style guide and recommendations. So let's start. In today's video, you will see different style guide and recommendation that I'm going to give you as a best practice in HTML. So the first style guide is always declare document type. What does it mean by that is if you look for HTML document types, then you will get to know that this doc type declaration is there, which we have to do at the top of our HTML code, where we write it like this: exclamation mark, doc type, and HTML inside this less than and greater than symbol. So in order to see what declaration should have for HTML5 and what declaration it was for HTML4 or 3, let's see it on the Google. So here I'm on Google and I am writing HTML4 doc type declaration, and you will see that there is a long declaration we had to do before HTML5. And let me check where it is, and here it is. Yeah, as you can see on my screen, if you look at the display here and the declaration, it is says doc type HTML and then public and this particular DTD, which is document type definition, by the way. And this path tells the browser that document type definition should refer from here, and browser should understand that as a HTML4 or HTML3, which is version given here, and accordingly browser will render it as recommended. And in HTML5 we don't have to remember the long doc type declaration. Instead we can just give doc type and HTML, and the browser will consider it as a HTML5 declaration, so which is latest version of HTML. So that is the first recommendation in today's topic. Then second thing is lowercase element names. Before I come to that point, I have to tell you something here, that your code should be consistent, clean, tidy, and it should look easier to others to read and understand. And that is what we are going to see today, that how we can do it. So let's come to this topic, which is use lowercase elements names. So what they do mean by this is they want us to use lowercase. So W3C is World Wide Web Consortium, which is an organization which governs HTML and CSS. So their recommendation is we should always use lowercase elements for the element names or attribute names, and we should not mix up the things with uppercase and lowercase, because it is not best practice, and it will not good to see such a code which is mixed of lowercase and uppercase. So always use lowercase, and developers normally use lowercase only, and lowercase looks cleaner and easy to understand or read or write. So that's why this one is a good practice, which is all characters are in lowercase. I'm talking about tag names here, not this paragraph text. This is up to you how you want to show it to the user, but the tag and attribute should not be in uppercase like this. This is a best practice to always have code like this, which is mentioned in the code, and this is not a good practice to keep your elements in uppercase. Although it will work, your browser will understand, but that is not a good thing to do. It is not recommended. Okay, so the next topic is close all HTML elements. So it literally means that whenever you start something, let's say section or paragraph as an element, you should end it if it is non-empty tag. And this is not a good practice to open a tag but do not close it, and instead just start the next tag again, because you have not closed it here, right? So browser will understand and treat it, but that is not a good for you as a developer, because your code should not look like this, but it should look like this always. So consider closing all the non-empty elements, and even though there are empty elements like br, hr, you should close it with the help of a forward slash here at the end. Okay, so the next topic is lowercase attribute names. As I said, the tag name should be in the lowercase. So why not attribute names, right? So since W3C recommends us to use the lowercase only, so we have to use it for attribute as well. And the same rules apply here. So whatever your attributes are like href, src, title, it should not be in capital, but it should be in lowercase only. The next thing is always quote attribute values. That means once you want to get the value here in an attribute, then you should enclose it in a double quote or single quote. Either use double quote or single quote, but you should enclose it. It should not be something like this where double quotes are not there, because in the long run, whenever you want to have more words than one word, there is a space distinguisher or the separator, right? And when you separate two words with the help of space, then this class attribute is going to understand the first part before the space only, and this browser is going to ignore this second part or third part or fourth part after the space, because that is not the full value it considers. So always have your values in a code so that it understand that this is the starting point where code started, and this is the ending point where code ended. So always use that. Then for the images, always use alt attribute, because that is an alternate text. So whenever your image does not load due to any reason, it shows alternate text instead of that image, so user will get to know what kind of image was supposed to load here, and your browser will also show that. But most important thing is the search engine, which is trying to tell the browser, or which is trying to understand what image is there, and on the search keyword, if the alt attribute value is matching to that keyword which user is going to search, the search engine recommends your image. So in order to have the search engine optimization, you should always give value to alt attribute and add alt attribute to the images, and give appropriate values as well, so that it matches the search result and the keywords. Then you should always give height and width to the images, so it should not pixelate or scale with the percentage, or we do not scale, something like that. So it is good practice to have height and width. So it should not be something like this without alt attribute or height attribute. It should look like this with alt attribute and height and width as well. By the way, spaces and equal signs means equal to sign is here, which is for attribute and value combination, right? And the same thing you can write this way also, but that is not a good practice. You should not have spaces around your operators like double quotes, means assignment operator. You should not have spaces like that. It does not look good to the eyes. You should always have a clean code like this without the spaces around double equal to. Okay, avoid long codes lines. So it is telling you that whenever possible, you should always press enter or move your code to the next lines to avoid cluttered code, and have a code which is readable to the user, instead of writing code in one line to all the way down till the scroll bar appears horizontally, and the user or you should not be scrolling it horizontally, right? Instead, consider having the line breaks whenever necessary. Avoid too long code liners. Okay, so blank lines and indentation. Indentation is a margin which you apply to your code blocks to indicate which is the child element and which is the parent. And it also looks nice as a tree structure, which tells the user or developer that this code is from this block, this parent, there are siblings to this element, and there are childs also, parent also. So it tells you about the relations. Let me tell you how. So this one is also good code, but their indentations are not there. But since they are talking about blank lines also, means should not be adding blank lines here and there, spaces here and there in unnecessarily, or indentation without reason. Your code should look like this and not like this without any spaces. what they mean is, if you have something to differentiate between these two headings, let's say this and paragraph is also there. If you notice, h2 is ending here, so paragraph is starting here. So why to do that? If you can press enter here or break the line and move this paragraph to the next line, it will look clean and nice like this, right? And that's why you should have the code look like this, which is easy to read, and not like this one. And the good example is to always give indentation like this to any of the code. So tr is the child of table, but th are the childs of tr, and both these tiers are siblings to each other, and that can be denoted with the help of these margin, right? So this has less margin, which is child of this parent, and side this there is a margin and the th is starting. So like that indentation you should give to your code. Here also they have given the list example where indentation is given to each and every li. It tells that these three li's are the siblings to each other, but they are the child of ul. And the next topic is never skip the title element. So they want you to tell that you should always have title tag in the head section to tell the search engine, web crawlers, and the users also that what page it is, what information it has, what is the title of the page basically, so that user will click from the search result and it will be here to indicate over we are on which page. So this purpose serves the title tag. Then there is omitting HTML and body, means they are talking about you should not be omitting HTML or you should not be skipping HTML and body tag. If you skip, still browser will understand, but that is not a good case, right? See, browser is smart enough to understand the code, but you should be smart enough to write the code correctly. Then only you are going to be considered as a smart developer. So you should not do something like this where HTML tag is not there, body tag is not there, body tag is not closing, HTML is not closing. It is not a good practice to omit or skip these important elements. And you should not be skipping head as well. So you should not be writing title without head, right? So HTML, head, body, all these things are necessary. And you should close empty elements, as I said, like this meta tag is there. This is allowed, but this is also allowed and this is recommended where you close empty elements with the help of forward slash, right? Then add lang attribute to your HTML tag, which tells the browser search engine to consider which language the page is using. So here it is English language from the US region. You can have Hindi, Chinese, or any other languages here. You can search how to write it over the internet and it will give you the result, but you should have lang attribute as well. Then you have metadata, which is a collection of meta tags where you can write meta character set UTF to so consider this page is getting created in any of the languages where UTF character set is available. That is the latest one. So you can use any symbol or any character entity or any language you want. And the viewport, which we covered earlier, that meta name viewport is very important whenever you are going to have a responsive website. So it resize your browser to the device width, so the content will fit. And this particular tag you should always have in your head section. Initial scale is a zoom level, which sets as 1.0, so it is the default one, and width of the website should be the equal to of device width. So that is something which will make your website look like this right side part where image and paragraph is completely getting fit to the device width and they are readable and nice. But if you don't write this meta viewport tag, then it will look something like this, which is not good, and you have to zoom the web page in order to read the text, right? And that is not recommended. So you should always have meta name viewport. Then in the code, if there are thousands of line of code, right, in that case, if some other developer joins or if a junior web developer is trying to read your code, it should not be hard. Instead, you can write the comments to make it easier and explain what kind of code it is, why you have used it, in which scenario it fits, and if there is confusion you should clarify it in the comment section. So comments are not seen by other users, right, which are using your web page. It is seen by developers only and for the developers only. You can hide some part which you want to hide it temporarily, and you can enable it in future if you require with the help of comments. You should always have comments in place in your code. Then using a style sheet, you should always use external style sheet whenever possible. If you have a requirement to change some style for particular page, then you can use internal style sheet as well. And if you have a requirement to specifically change only one text, let's say to red, and there are 80 pages, you should go with the inline as well. There is no issue. The best practice is to use the external css like this by linking the code. We have already seen that this link href is style.css is the path, and this relation style sheet is the attribute that tells the browser that we are linking the style sheet in our web page. Then you should always have css specificity, so you can go to my playlist section or video section where you will find css specificity video created by me, which tells you that you should always write something like this, which tells that only paragraphs which has intro class assigned to it, they should have this particular css. And you should not be writing all the paragraphs should have this css, or all the intro class should have this css. Whenever you are specifically using your combinator selectors with the paragraphs, you should always utilize writing this part of code. So css rules and how to write, I have already covered in the playlist section. You can go and visit the css specificity video. Then you should always have your background colors, font size, colors, and default values in the body for your web page. For the javascript, you should always write it in the script tag and create external js file, so that the css part will be present in a css file, javascript part will be present in javascript, and whenever you want to edit those files, you can go directly and edit that instead of editing html again and again, right? So avoid having the internal javascript or internal css. Instead use external ones like this. Then accessing the html elements with javascript means we have covered it. Like html uses the id attribute, right? And in id you should always have unique ids. You should not have the same id again on the same web page, because javascript will not work like that, because it will consider only the first element. So here if you see, demo and demo id are two different ids, because this d is capital here and this is not capital. So when you want to write a demo element with hello text, see, the demo element with hello text is there for this particular demo, but this is not getting changed because this does not have the small d, right? Because javascript is a case sensitive language. But the moment when you move it to or change it to a demo, which is in small case, the same program will work for the first paragraph. See, it is working for the first but not second, because it should not have, the web page should not have the same id again. So it should have something else right, you can write, right? So instead of this, you will be copying it again using this xyz id, and you can write whatever you want to write here. And in this case both will work because both are different ids. See, okay. So as I said, use lowercase attributes and elements as well. The same thing goes with lowercase file names, because Apache, Unix, and all these Linux-based systems and servers, right? They are made in a way that for them it is different if you use small case or lowercase for two different files. So here london.jpg is there where L is capital. So it will consider both file names are different, the small l and the capital L. And if you do that mistake, it will not work. Your website will fail. The image will not load, or the page or the file will not load, like that. But for IIS server, Internet Information Services, which is by Microsoft, it is not case sensitive. Both these files with smaller l and capital L are same, so they will work, right? But why to rely on this, right? You are not going to know which server you are going to use in future, or you move your site to the next server. Instead, use smaller case always to avoid the confusion. And your file names like index.html or about.html or whichever file name, you should always consider having a lowercase characters to the file names as well. Okay, file extensions. As we know, HTML is for HTML, CSS file extension for CSS, and JS file extension for JavaScript. There is one more .htm which is allowed. If you want to give, you can give as well. HTML is also for HTML, and there is no difference for in HTML and HTML. You can use both. I prefer using .html, and default file name is index.html or index.htm. As I said, htm or html does not matter. And for some servers it is default.html or default.html. So whenever you hit this web page, let's say any web page, then you see some page, right? As a welcome page or a home page. So this is the home page for this website, and we have not written slash index.html here, right? If we do that, it says no, that is not the file present here. Let me write this default.html, right? So when I write that default.html, then also it says file not found. Why? Because these websites, right? These websites are created in PHP, and it should have index.php instead of html, and the server can be configured differently, but by default the php is also not there, so they have configured the server to not let you know what file they are using as a default file name. But for now you can consider using these files, because when you apply these file names and upload your website, then whenever someone uses your domain name only to visit your website, this index.html or default.html, these file names are default, so they will get open as a home page. So you should always have index.html as a home page file, and you can configure the server as well again for which file to consider as a default. Okay, so here we have covered this chapter, and I hope you like whatever the information I shared today. Thank you for watching the full video. I appreciate your time, and I hope you will watch other videos which I have created in the playlist section. Thank you.